The salt doesn't just sit on your skin, it gets under it. It finds every crack in your knuckles and every scratch on your face, stinging until you forget what it's like to feel clean. You remember the mud of London. You remember the gray, suffocating fog of the docks where you started. You were a nobody then, just another hungry mouth with a hollow chest and eyes that looked at the grand merchant ships with a mix of pure hatred and desperate longing. You remember the day the press gang found you. They didn't ask. They didn't offer a choice. A heavy club to the back of the head. A wake-up call of cold seawater. Suddenly, you were property of the crown. You spent 3 long years pulling ropes until your palms were nothing but leather and scar tissue. You watched men get lashed for a misplaced word. You watched the officers eat steak while you ate biscuits crawling with weevils. That was the spark. That was the moment the heat started building in your gut. You realize then that the only difference between a king and a beggar is the courage to take what isn't yours. One night, the moon hidden behind a shroud of black clouds, the spark caught fire. It wasn't a clean fight, it was a messy, desperate scramble in the dark. You felt the heavy weight of a boarding axe in your hand for the first time. The wood of the handle felt right. It felt like power. You saw the first mate's eyes go wide as you stepped out of the shadows. You didn't hesitate. You didn't think about the law or the God your mother used to pray to. You swung. The sound of steel meeting bone is something you never forget. It's a dull thud, followed by a wet snap. When the sun came up, the deck was stained a deep, dark crimson that the sea refused to wash away. You stood there, breathing hard, looking at the men. They were terrified. They were free. And they were looking at you for what to do next. You didn't ask to be the captain that day. You just were. You were the one who didn't blink. You were the one with the blood on his boots. The first few months were a dream of salt and gold. You felt like a god. You renamed the ship something sharp, something that sounded like a threat. You traded the king's colors for a flag that promised nothing but the end. You told the men that every man would have a vote. You told them every man would have a share. You were a liberator. You were the man who broke the chains. You took your first merchantmen off the coast of the Carolinas. It was easy. They saw your black flag and their spirits broke before the first cannon roared. You climbed over the rail, smelling the ozone of the gunpowder and the sweet, cloying scent of fear. You found a chest of Spanish silver and a crate of fine silk. That night, you drank rum until the stars danced. You felt a pride you had never known. You were a king of the waves. But power is a slow poison. It starts small. It starts with the way you look at the men. At first, you were their brother. Then you were their leader. Then you became something else. You realize that democracy on a ship is a fragile, dangerous thing. Men are greedy. Men are lazy. They need a hand that doesn't shake. The first time you had to punish one of your own, it felt like a betrayal. He had stolen an extra share of tobacco. Small, petty, but the others were watching. You could feel their eyes on your back, measuring your strength, looking for a crack. You didn't lash him. You marooned him. You left him on a sandbar with a bottle of water and a pistol with one shot. As the ship pulled away, you watched him through the glass. He didn't scream. He just sat there, getting smaller and smaller against the blue horizon. You didn't sleep that night. You sat in your cabin, the fine silk you stole wrapped around your shoulders, feeling the silence of the ship. It was the first time you realized that being the captain means being the loneliest man on the ocean. As the years blurred together, the gold piled up, but the weight in your chest grew heavier. You weren't the boy from the docks anymore. You were a legend. They told stories about you in the taverns of Tortuga and Nassau. They said you were made of smoke and iron. You liked it. You leaned into it. You started wearing the finest coats, heavy with gold braid, taken from the backs of dead men. You grew your beard long and let the sun turn your skin into dark parchment. But the hunger never went away. You needed more. More ships. More gold. More fear. You started taking risks you shouldn't have. You chased a Portuguese frigate into a storm that should have swallowed you both. The waves were mountains of black glass, crashing down with the weight of a falling cathedral. The men were screaming, begging you to turn back. You stood at the helm, your hands bleeding from the grip on the wheel, laughing into the wind. You weren't brave. You were just numb. You didn't care if the ship sank as long as you felt something. You caught the frigate. You boarded her in the middle of the gale. The fighting was a blur of rain and steel. You found yourself in the captain's cabin. He was an old man, his hair as white as the foam on the waves. He sat at his desk, holding a picture of a woman. He didn't reach for a sword. He just looked at you with pity. You hated that look. You hated that he saw through the gold and the blood. You killed him where he sat. You took his ring, a heavy gold band with a red stone. You wear it now. It's cold against your skin. Every time you look at it, you see his eyes. You see the question he didn't ask. What are you becoming? The guilt is a ghost that lives in the bilge. It comes up at night when the wind dies down and the ship is still. You think about the ships you burned, the families stranded on sinking hulls. You tell yourself it's just business, but the lies are getting harder to believe. Your men aren't brothers anymore. They are a pack of wolves. They don't see a hero. They see a target, a pile of gold needing a new owner. You sleep with a loaded pistol under your pillow. You even killed Silas, your oldest friend, just to keep the fear alive. He told you the gold was rotting your brain, and for that, you tied him to the mast. Now, when you walk the deck at night, you hear his boots behind you. You realize you didn't escape the king's ship. You just built a smaller, meaner one of your own. You are the monster you used to dream of killing. Then comes the day the horizon turns into a forest of masts. The Royal Navy has found you. They don't want to surrender. They want a hanging. As your men panic, you feel a strange sense of peace. The wait is finally over. You give the order to engage, and the world turns into fire and smoke. Splinters the size of daggers fly through the air. You look at the lead Navy ship, a massive mountain of oak and iron. You realize you don't hate them anymore. You envy them. They have a purpose. You have nothing but a sinking ship and a chest full of gold. A cannonball smashes into the mainmast. It groans like a dying beast before crashing down. The ship is listing hard, water rushing into the lower decks. You draw your sword, meeting the first Navy sailors in a clash of steel. You take a bullet in the shoulder, a cut to the thigh, but you keep fighting. You fight because it's the only thing you remember how to do. Soon you are alone on the burning quarterdeck. You pull out a gold Spanish doubloon. You spent your whole life trying to win a king's wealth. And here you are, dying with a piece of metal that can't buy you a single breath of air. You start to laugh. The fire reaches the magazine. You look out over the beautiful, indifferent blue water one last time. You think about the boy in London who just wanted to be free. You forgive him. Then the world turns white. There is no pain. You drift now, not as a man, but as a memory. The pressure of the water crushes the breath from your lungs and the pride from your heart. You see your ship breaking apart, your stolen treasures drifting away like trash. The light from the surface fades into a flickering star. You spent your whole life fighting the dark, only to find it was the only thing truly yours. You aren't the captain anymore. You are just a boy, finally going to sleep. The sea has claimed its debt. The storm is over. You are finally at peace in the cold, dark cradle of the deep.